I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome you to the Coeur d'Alene School District Board meeting for October 4th, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via Zoom and available for viewing on YouTube. I am Rebecca Smith, Vice Chair, and it's good to be with you. Joining me this evening are Mrs. Lisa May, Board Member, Mr. Casey Morrisroe, Board Member, Dr. Sean Hawker, Superintendent, and Ms. Lynn Town, Clerk of the Board. No public comment will be accepted during tonight's meeting. Comments may be submitted to the board using trustees@coeurdalenschools.org or through the clerk at any time. Issues may be recorded and referred to the proper staff member for follow-up. Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
And did we lose Miss May? I think I can second that, but we can't. I'll go ahead and second the motion. Lisa, are you still with us? All right, I think we're having some technical difficulties again, just getting some things worked out on the other end. We'll go ahead and take a vote as soon as we have Lisa back with us, unless Lynn.
Hear me?
Now we can hear you, Lisa. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, my computer, I'm having a hard time with the link. I've logged back in and logged back out.
Yeah. Okay.
I second. I heard the motion. I can hear you guys talking, so I second.
Okay. Great. Got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. We're going to go on to board trustee comments then. There is one comment for this evening, and I wanted to thank you all for joining us via Zoom this evening. For our next board meeting on November 1st, we are working towards having that in person again with public comment. And so we are looking to secure a good spot for that. And so stay tuned over the next few weeks. That's what we're working towards. And so that was the one comment I wanted to make right off the bat tonight, is that is the plan for November. So for tonight's information and looking forward to this, we'd like to start with the high school student body reports. And so I think first up tonight, we have K-Tech. And so let's hear what's going on at K-Tech right now.
Hi, my name is Michaela, and this is Clara, and this is Maddie.
And we're all juniors here at K-Tech in the Health Professions program.
And we just want to say a big thank you for supporting us.
Why are you at K-Tech?
Personally, I am at K-Tech because I wanted to see if going into the medical field was what I actually wanted to do when I graduate high school, and I wanted to graduate with my CNA.
Same. I also know that the medical field's always going to need people, and I just want to be there to help.
And personally, I struggle with attendance, and K-Tech gave me the motivation to go to school and graduate with my graduating class.
What have you started learning already at K-Tech?
In the first 4 weeks, we've already learned how to take a pulse, medical terminology.
We've also learned respirations, blood pressure, along with fire safety.
And our entire class is already CPR certified.
What are some of your class goals?
Some of our class goals is to get a job right out of high school and just to explore the medical field. Again, just a big thank you for supporting K-Tech, and we appreciate you.
Great, thank you, K-Tech. And then let's hear from our next school.
The mission of Venture High School is to assist students to achieve their highest potential through individualized, flexible, and structured educational experiences that enhance their academic growth and prepare them for lifelong learning and success. We had quite a few projects going on at Venture the first month. Along with focusing on the mission statement, our teachers have also been focusing on the portrait of a graduate. Michelle Pavlik's class focused on a recycling project. Her class centered around boosting creativity and building character this week. The recycling bins they made will be placed around our school to help promote recycling and making our planet healthier. During Lena Cooley's class, they worked on collaborative games. One person was blindfolded and the other told them how to put a puzzle together. They also played a communication teamwork game called Forbidden Island. The goal was to escape the island as a group, working together. In Diana Baker's class, the students moved into teams and cooked bacon. This allowed them to expand upon their critical thinking and analytical skills. All the students had to run through the different ways to cook the bacon and determine what was different about it. The small groups also helped them better their collaboration and communication skills. Madam Failing's class, they worked together as partners in a marble run. They had to use critical thinking and problem solving while building character. Meanwhile, Carlos Gonzalez's math class focused on content knowledge, communicating ideas into words, and collaboration agreements. They were also working on critical thinking, realizing there is more than one way to solve a specific problem.
Thanks, Venture. Now, I'll let you just pull up whichever. I know we're hearing from all 4 schools this evening, so whichever one is next then. I think it's CHS. Or nope, Lake City.
Board Chair, Honorable Trustees, Superintendent Hawker, District Administration, and valued community members. My name is Caden Stone, and I'm the ASB President here at Lake City High School. Today, we wanted to update you guys on the exciting month we just had and the month ahead here at Lake City. We concluded our homecoming week 2 weeks ago, and it was an amazing success. Our student body had such a fun time with our Spirit Days. Our parade was the largest it's ever been, featuring 32 entries, including royalty, football, our grand marshals, and so many other student groups and organizations. Halftime of the football game was highlighted by our incredible marching band and the crowning of our homecoming king and queen, Bridger Stevens and Izzy Hinkle. Our homecoming dance on Saturday night, which featured great music courtesy of DJ Rocks and beautiful outer space decorations, was so much fun for everyone in attendance. Overall, Homecoming 2021 was loads of fun and a week we will never forget. Last Friday, we also hosted our annual Senior Start event. Our seniors started out the morning with free breakfast in the Commons provided by our senior parents before attending our senior class meetings, where they were informed about graduation plans, updates, and orders for graduation apparel. We then went outside and played very fun color war, slip and slide, and yard games. It was a very fun and successful event to kick off senior year. A huge thanks is due to our senior counselor here at Lake City, Catalina Chacon, for all of her hard work to help make that event possible. We have planned a very productive and impactful October for our T-Wolf community. First off, we began our Mental Health Awareness Week today in alliance with Sources of Strength and the Coeur d'Alene High School Student Council. This is going to be a week aimed at spreading positivity, awareness, hope, and love through positive messages, games, challenges, conversations, and education at both Lake City and CHS. The week will culminate with our pregame tailgate on Friday before our home football game against Coeur d'Alene, which will offer free food to all spectators regardless of who you are rooting for. Also at the tailgate will be Sources of Strength booths and the opportunity to donate to a couple of amazing mental health nonprofits chosen by our 2 schools, Holinsky's Hope and Mental Health America. While we will be battling on the field, our schools are united in breaking the stigma around mental health, highlighting resources for struggling students, and overall spreading positivity. We are also fully committed to participating in Breast Cancer Awareness Month and are looking forward to decorating our school as pink as possible and running fundraisers for cancer research in support of all of our staff members, parents, and community members who have dealt with or are dealing with breast cancer. We also have an exciting month of activities coming up here at Lake City. Many clubs such as improv, role-play gaming, art, dance, speech, and debate are starting back up, and we are excited for our students to get back involved. We also have districts and state tournaments coming up for our fall sports. Our fall teams are competing very hard, including our boys soccer team, which is ranked #1 in the state. We are looking forward to cheering on all of our student athletes in this final stretch. So thank you for the opportunity to come speak with you tonight, and we will see you again next month. Go T-Wolves.
Thanks, Lake City. I think finally we have Coeur d'Alene High.
Good evening, esteemed board chair, our honorable trustees, Superintendent Hawker, and our valued community members. My name is Maya Reitz, and I'm Coeur d'Alene High School's ASB president. With me tonight is Gracie Shaver, our ASB secretary, and Ellie Morshow, our ASB vice president.
Thank you, Maya. Recently, we were able to have our freshman class elections, where the freshman class was able to elect 12 students to represent their class, and they elected 10 representatives, vice president, and a president because their class was so large.
Thanks, Gracie. We also recently elected our Blue Zoo Crew. And Blue Zoo Crew is a group of spirited upperclassmen who help bring the hype to games and our student section. We were able to elect 4 captains, and we have overall 23 members this year. We've really been focusing on promoting good sportsmanship at games, respecting teams, other teams, and our own, and school property. We really just want Blue Zoo Crew to embody what it means to be a Viking. We're also really excited to partner with Lake City this week for Mental Health Awareness Week, and we're going to partner with them and do a tailgate with them before our game on Friday.
Thanks, Maya. We're super excited for our homecoming festivities coming up the week of October 11th. We have over 420 students involved in our parade on Thursday, October 14th, and we're super excited to have changed our route so that it goes by CHS and Canfield, and we can get way more students involved. We'd like to extend a personal invitation to board members and district employees to come to our parade on Thursday and homecoming game on Friday.
Thanks, Ellie. Lastly, we just want to recognize a few students from our school that have been outstanding this month. So our October Rotary Student of the Month is actually Ellie Morserow. Good job, Ellie. Also, our commended student for the 2022 National Merit Scholarship Program this month is Brooke Strong. And College Board National Program wants to recognize Otsque Shabala and Alex Reyes this month.
Thanks, Matt. We'd like to take this last final moment to thank all of our board members and everyone present for all the time that they put into us, and we really appreciate all the work you do for us.
Go Bucks!
Thanks. Thanks to all of our high schools for presenting tonight. It's a lot that's gone on in the first few weeks of school, so that's great to see. Next up, I think we have our Sag Leadership Report. And so, Austin, are you presenting or?
Yep, that one's me.
Thanks, Austin.
So for those of you who don't know or are unaware, my name's Austin Smith. I'm the Student Advisory Group Vice Chair this year, and I have been chosen to talk about what we've been up to and some of the future and that kind of things tonight. So the most important thing that I'm really excited to announce is that we've actually found a new high school student advisory group advisor for this upcoming school year, and that is Miss Rachel Carnes at Coeur d'Alene High School. And she's just phenomenal. She's an excellent educator and an overall great person. So we're really excited to be working with her. At the high school level, I know that we're trying to get really involved with the High School Student Alignment Committee, along with a few other projects that we're working on with Miss Barrett and other district level administrators. And I would turn it over to Miss Babb and Miss Nelson, but Miss Babb said that she was having technical difficulties. So if you don't mind, I'd like to steal a little bit of her thunder. She said that the little elementary kids will be meeting on October 11th in the morning to discuss ways that they can effectively and, importantly and impactfully communicate their concerns of what's happening in the elementary world. So that's just phenomenal. And if you have any questions, I implore you to talk to her. She's just amazing. And also with us tonight is Mrs. Nelson, who I think would be more than willing to talk about what the middle school people are up to.
Thank you, Austin. I so appreciate the warm welcome. Just a quick little update. Mrs. Babb and I had the greatest opportunity to meet with Dr. Hawker and Mrs. Barrett and Mrs. Morrison to really talk about Student Advisory Group and its purpose and what our goal is for this year as far as just creating those opportunities for student voice and agency. And it was just so wonderful for all of us to be together and just talk about vision and steps moving forward. So just middle school will also be meeting on October 11th, and we have the same type of questions that we're going to be talking about is what's the best way you can ensure all student voices from your school are heard? How are you going to let your students know that you're a SAG representative? And what do you feel are the most pressing concerns for middle school students in our district right now? So that's where we're going to be starting and getting together and hopefully making some positive change for all students in our district. Thank you, Austin.
Terrific. Is that everything, Austin?
I would be more than willing to stand open for questions, but as far as the little speech I've got to give, that's pretty much the extent of it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much. I don't know if any of the other trustees have a question or anything, but I'm excited to see how this will roll out now that you're fully in place and moving forward, and how we can, I think as trustees especially, hear that input. I think it's going to be really key to keep considering how do we hear it, because I want to be able to hear it and then apply, the student voice as well. So it's real important. Thanks for all your work on that, everyone. Good. If there's no other questions, CEA report. I'd like to introduce, I think we have our new president, Aaron Hayes. And so looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks, Aaron.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, to the trustees and the administration, the community, I just want to thank everybody who's been working really hard this year so far. Your efforts are definitely appreciated, and I know we have a lot of problems to solve still, but I trust we can keep finding solutions and keeping our staff safe and all the families we have, giving them the support they need. I have two just brief things to discuss tonight. One is that the negotiation teams for both the union and the district have worked really hard to get a proposed settlement. And the main reason I think you understand is this advanced professional endorsement issue. I'm sure you're familiar with the details, but I just wanted to emphasize the fact that this is a change, sort of a rudder change in an adaptation of a multi-year issue on how we're going to start looking at the advanced professional wrong. And so I just encourage you to keep, as you're budgeting long-term and thinking about going down these roads, how we're going to recruit and retain good teachers through this and what that might look like budget-wise. Just a huge thank you to the district team and just a public thanks to our team. I think hopefully I've thanked everybody enough on our team about the hard work and the amount of time they spent figuring this stuff out. The other issue I just wanted to bring up is I wanted to emphasize as teachers, and I'm sure as the districts, our appreciation for education support professionals, which is, what I like to call the classified staff who are working despite everything this year to keep the district running. And as a local union, we are just thinking of ways of finding ways of supporting them more and recognizing them as a critical part of our work environment. And I'm just hoping everyone's willing to look at different ways this year that we can support them. So negotiations, I know a lot of issues. If you were interested in my thoughts, I could talk more, but I'm sure you have read everything, and so I'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Aaron. Trustee May, Trustee Morrisroe, I don't know if you have any questions or anything, or.
No, just appreciate the input. Thank you.
Yeah, no questions, but thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you being here and welcome into that role.
I know it's big on all of our hearts and minds just to figure out how to recruit teachers that want to be here in our community and keep doing that. So that's something I know we'll all work for together. So thank you for that. And let's move on then to our consent agenda. It's an action item. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, or?
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through G.
I was wondering if we could remove item C from the consent agenda for quick discussion. I said a few questions about that.
Yeah, and Ms. Town, I'm not sure, do we just pull that out and discuss it separately tonight, or do we want to put a comment on that or discuss it later? And that's the proposal for extended sick leave.
You can, Mr. Morrisroe could amend his motion to approve A, B, and D through G, and you can pull C for further discussion.
So moved. That will work.
Okay.
I will second then the motion to remove C from the consent agenda for approval.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so for C then, is that something?
Yeah, I just had a few questions as I was reading through it. We haven't had a opportunity to discuss this yet as a board, and so there's a couple of items that caught my eye. One was the potential that a staff member could go negative in their sick bank and have to use time in the next year if indeed they did get sick with COVID during this calendar year. So I wanted to get some input from Dr. Hawker on that. And the second was just the overall thought is this policy potentially not encouraging, but not allowing staff to stay home if they're sick, especially for our younger staff that might not have as much accrued sick time as our more tenured staff. So I just wanted to get Dr. Hawker's view on that. And I know that we've received ESSER dollars, and there's an opportunity that potentially we could use some of those funds to support our staff during this difficult time. We're almost there, and I think we're, hopefully getting ready to be on the downside, but I would hate for any staff member to have to use all of their sick time or even a piece of their sick time and have to be in the negative starting the year out. So I just wanted to get his perspective on that.
Thank you, Isle. If that's okay, I'll let me do my best to try to answer those questions. Again, this is I think an opportunity for us to at least put a foot forward in the right direction. We are super aware that we have teachers who have used up many of their sick leave days because of prior other illnesses, maybe over the last few years. Of course, COVID as well. We also are aware that, we have a fair amount of new staff, whether it's teachers or classified, that are new to the district within the last year or two. And so we wanted to make sure that we could present something to the board to try to make sure that all of our employees would at least be made whole, so they could still at least pay their bills, pay their rent, and not go into the negative. And so a proposal was presented here to the board for approval that would allow us to do that with what we felt was minimal risk to the district from a financial perspective. The risk would simply be if an employee left and took advantage of this offer. We believe, again, right now this offer is I couldn't guess how many will end up using this specific offer over the next month or two, or whenever maybe we get through most of this. But we again wanted to just at least put a foot forward. If the board would like us to look at additional strategies and things to do, as Trustee May has mentioned, the ESSER dollars, which again, as I have shared, the conversations have spent those dollars multiple times over. So it just boils down to creating a priority list of those funds. We certainly could bring something back to you, perhaps to even do something further if that's the board's wishes, and we could work on that over these next 30 days before your next board meeting. But I would ask that we at least put a foot forward to help ensure our employees who maybe are down to just a few days left would know that they're going to be able to be made whole, and they could borrow against those days of next year.
Yeah, so let me make sure I'm understanding the information's in the packet. So what the district is presenting to the staff is the opportunity for them to go negative, borrow into their next year's sick bank. Is that correct? So there's no offer on the table to provide them coverage if indeed they became sick with COVID during this calendar year.
Yeah, exactly. The proposal at this time is to, again, allow everybody to not have to deal with worry about any potential pay deductions, and to be able to make sure that their take-home pays are made whole by basically fronting them the necessary days. It becomes as you can imagine, everything in COVID is difficult. It's a big challenge to figure out, what are those numbers? What should that look like? And as well as I do, a teacher could come down and be sick with COVID over a period of a school year. Maybe that doesn't happen within 90 days to a few months after being sick the first time. But also teachers oftentimes don't really get sick. Perhaps they're needing to use their days to stay at home with a sick spouse or sick children, and that could cycle multiple times throughout a school year. So trying to come up with how many days to grant to staff is very challenging at best, and trying to find an avenue that would be fair to all employees also merits a lot of discussion. And so really, after having all of that and working through all that, I was in support of the proposal from our Human Resources Department to at least try to find an avenue that would be fair to all employees, and at least knowing that they, if they ever do get down to 0 days left and still need to have some days off for a COVID illness, that they would be covered and made whole. And so I guess, again, based on the wishes of the board here with this action item, if you'd like us to go back to work and put together some additional proposals, we'd be happy to do that. Again, I just want to put something out now to get a backstop, so to speak, to help our employees today.
Yeah, I appreciate all that work, Dr. Hawker. I know this is a very tricky topic, and last year was a lot easier when you guys had more guidance and from the state. I think moving forward for me, knowing that half of our students are not yet eligible for vaccine, but they will be shortly if their families choose that. I don't want our staff to be in a situation where they feel as though they have to come to work sick. And because we don't have access to rapid PCR tests for our staff, I worry that especially our new staff wake up with a headache, sore throat, fever, and they come to work because they have limited number of sick days. And so without policy in place that allows them opportunity to get tested without using these sick days, I wish we knew the number of staff that were potentially at risk, and if there was a way that we could have some leeway in offering our staff that do get sick in this calendar year some protections, especially because we have received a substantial amount of federal dollars just for this sort of thing. So I guess that's my perspective. I like policies forward thinking that are protecting our students and staff, and I think there's probably some way we can meet in the middle, and I felt as though maybe this was not looking after our staff or our students as much as I hoped that we could. So I'm open to whatever suggestions other board members might have.
Great, thanks, Trustee May. Trustee Morrisroe, do you have any thoughts or?
I'll be quick. I think for me, I guess I'm not opposed to hearing what other alternatives are out there. What I think moving forward with this policy in the meantime makes sense. I think Dr. Hawker, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I read it, if currently a staff member uses up whatever sick days they have and go beyond that, they kind of reach a choice. Do I come to work sick, or do I take a day, and at that point, those days beyond what they had start subtracting out of their paycheck at their daily rate? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so this proposal would be, instead of them subtracting out of their paycheck, they're borrowing against next year's sick days, correct?
Correct.
I'm in favor of approving this, and wouldn't be opposed to hearing more or what other ideas are out there, but I'll leave it at that.
Dr. Harker, is this is pretty time sensitive to have something in place for right now. Is that correct? Am I correct in my understanding that way, that we need something in place right now and then we could continue to add on to it kind of moving forward?
Yes, I think this would at least create some level of comfort. It may not be perfect and exactly as good as we could do next month when we bring back another proposal, perhaps. But I do believe at least it's something so that staff know that they're not going to go in the hole and lose funding in the event they were to get sick. And then we can spend some time this next few weeks, and certainly if it's the board's wishes, bring back some additional proposal for next time.
I'll just say too, I think I'm correct in this, in that last year was a different situation, at least for part of the year, because the federal government provided a tax credit for this time through our payroll taxes, and that was offered to any business in the United States. And I know that was something I had employees at my business take advantage of, but that has expired. That's no longer available, that tax credit. So this is an issue facing really all employers at this point. So, I'll make a motion to approve item C on the consent agenda, if we're ready for that.
I'd be willing to move forward if we could be able to see a proposal next month from Dr. Hawker. I think, in light of the monies that we have received from the federal government, to not provide our staff anything in the case that they are sick and out because of COVID, I think I'm not comfortable with that moving forward. I don't want to incentivize staff to come to work sick, especially until all students have access to get vaccines. So if it's with the caveat that next month we can hear some potential ways that if staff are sick, if it's either 1 or 2 days or whatever Ms. Ebner thinks might be feasible, I would like to hear some sort of opportunity for our staff. I've heard from several staff members that it's been frustrating for them, that they've had to already use their personal time because they've been out sick with COVID. So, I'm willing to move forward, so no one has to take any days off if they're already out, or lose potential paycheck if they're already out of their sick days. But moving forward, I'd like to see some sort of proposal brought forward that we could at least discuss.
Dr. Hawker, does that give you enough direction?
You betcha.
Then I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks. Moving on then to our consent agenda items for information. Are there any questions at this point on those consent agenda items?
None for me.
None for me.
All right. Moving on then. Dr. Nelson, I believe you're up with our assessment and student achievement information.
Well, good evening, Vice Chair Smith, Superintendent Hawker, and members of the board. Hope all of you are doing well this evening. It is amazing that we are now into our 5th week of classes. And after our own teaching and support staff have had some time to get to know their students a little bit better and establish a supportive schedule for them, that we've now provided assessments to students, and we have our first data to be able to know their current abilities and their potential over the course of the year. But before we get a chance to be able to take a look at our results, we want to actually take a few moments to talk about our program of assessments as well. And just making sure that my screen is up, it appears so. The first thing that I wanted to go over is remind you that our assessment program is defined in our document that is called our Comprehensive Assessment Plan. The first thing that is very important is that we only provide assessments that are value added for our students. That every kid in our district, every parent, every faculty, staff member needs to know the purpose of every assessment that we give. And they need to know what the targets are so that we can identify really good and poor performance just by using those assessments. The time that we have with our kids is very valuable. So we need to only provide students with assessments that really accurately measure their learning and give us a path moving forward. We don't want to just assess for the purposes of getting a number. We want to get something that we can use over the course of a year, monitoring growth along the way. Really, what we want to provide you and to our community is that we want to have valid, reliable, and dependable data on how students are performing. Therefore, we need to ensure that students can really do their very best work. So I do have these embedded into any of the presentations that our students receive before the assessments. And again, we have a structure of assessments along the way. A majority of our students' work, let me turn on, let me see if I can get my laser printer out. I can't on here for whatever reason. But these bottom 2 bars of the pyramid are where a majority of our teaching staff spend their time, really watching student growth day by day, little formative check-ins with kids. Even a raise of hands gives us information. The data that I'm going to provide for you today is right in the middle. These are local benchmark assessments. They have been chosen because they meet those criteria at the very top of the first slides that we provided. The top of the pyramid will get, those are more summative assessments, things that we'll see toward the very end of the year. We did also provide remote assessment to a few students along the way. We had a handful who were just not able to come into the school facility. So we provided the assessment at home. That was one of the flexible pieces that we really wanted in choosing an assessment. But we did provide safeguards and communications to make sure that really the results that we have were reliable and accurate for those students. The two assessments that I'm going to be focusing on today are in elementary school. The first is iStation Reading, which is commonly in Idaho known as the Idaho Reading Indicator. We actually provide this assessment in grades K through 5, but it is only measuring the Idaho Reading Indicator in grades K through 3. Now, wouldn't you want to just sit and practice your reading by shooting a few asteroids along the way? I mean, that's really what this student is doing at the time. They're practicing vocabulary, and this is the new iStation platform that was launched this year called PowerPath. We did have some problems along the way in administering PowerPath, but we don't feel that it really impacted any of the results that we're seeing. Again, we give the Idaho Reading Indicator in grades K through 3, and then our students in 4 and 5 continue their work so that we can continually monitor their growth before leaving elementary school. For students who are a little bit behind right now, we do offer monthly progress monitoring and individual student licenses to make sure that students are able to grow along their pathways. Ultimately, we want all students to be on grade level and reading to potential by the end of their year. How did our students perform? Well, this gives you a chart of performance on our very first diagnostic of the year in the month of September. The green bars identify that a student is on track or already on grade level. The yellow bars identify that the student is probably close to one grade level below where they should be. And anybody who is in the red bar would be considered 2 grade levels below. One of the first things that we want to point out to you on this is also take a look at the sample size at the bottom of the screen. You'll notice that just under 600 more students assessed over the previous year. And that it does tell you a little bit about the drop that we saw in K-5 for iStation and our overall enrollment during pandemic learning this last year. So we did see an increase in the number of population taking it, but still about 500 fewer students than when we administered the exam 2 years ago. Overall, 59% of our students are right about where they should be. 22% are getting there, and 19% are showing some initial struggles. When you compare these data over the course of the last 3 years, we don't see any of those bars that would be statistically significant, meaning that there's a 5% or more difference between any of those bars along the way. So pretty normal, we would say, for this time of year. Again, we do identify students for early reading intervention, and any student who is at Tier 3 will be provided an individualized learning plan. That it would be in the red bars up at the very top. And again, we provide personalized lessons and licenses for those students. We do also want to share with you what we are seeing in the data right now. The window ended on September 30th, so these are some initial thinkings that we have within our team. First of all, was in participation. We did see a few problems with the new iStation platform. The one thing that was a burden is in early primary, because in the past, our students would be able to click on their screen using the touchpad. The new PowerPath did not have that as a capability yet. So we wondered a little bit as to whether that was going to impact our data. And so far, it looks pretty norm. We did have a nearly 100% participation, whether a student was in our buildings or not. One of the weaknesses that we did see is that we saw the percentage of students meeting the early on grade level mark remains lower than when we were in pandemic learning. And we did see an increase in the past 2 years in the students who are well behind their reading goals. Now, luckily, we showed you data this last spring that really we closed the gap very, very well. And our goal in the red bar that you see over there is to, again, decrease that by about 20% over the course of the year. One of the things that we are also trying to do is we are going to increase some professional learning. Katie Grotman, through her team, is providing additional training to our staff around Horton Gillingham, which is going to assess or address primary foundational skills, which are highly measured in this assessment. And again, working with the mice for our early primary students. Because PowerPath does not allow for touchscreens, we think that may be another area that we can move. Vice Chair Smith, if you would like, can I stop for a quick moment before we move on to iReady and ask, are there any questions about the iReady or iStation data for the Idaho Reading Indicator?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Dr. Nelson, I know you'd mentioned you're going to be able to provide breakout according to grade, maybe down the road.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, Trustee May, we do have that data. We are refining it right now. We'll be able to provide data by building, by grade level, and we're also measuring it by skills. So when we want to look at spelling, for example, which is one of the subtests that is measured, we'll be able to look at up and down that and find out where specific areas of need are.
Oh, that's fantastic. And is this the sort of information, I know we talked about our data dashboard last month, that you'll anticipate that we'll eventually, our parents will be able to see and interact with on our dashboard?
Well, it is already there. On our data dashboard at cdaschools.org. On the blue About Us menu option, you'll be able to see our data dashboard. And if you click in the elementary area, we've actually improved the data dashboard with clickability. So you'll be able to do some initial dive into the data right now.
Well, thank you, Dr. Nelson. I can't wait to check it out.
Absolutely. Any other questions from our trustees?
Good evening, Dr. Nelson. I was just wondering, on the grade benchmarks that you talk about there, as far as on grade or one grade below or two or more grades below, is that end of the year benchmarks that they're using, or those current, month into school?
Sure.
Benchmarks?
These are norm reference assessments. The references that you're seeing there are based on the month of September. So iStation provides us monthly norms. The assessment that we'll take a look at in a few moments, iReady, provides us quarterly norms. But this is referring to students' place in the month of September over the course of an academic year. So you could consider them beginning of the year norms.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Vice Chair Smith, how do you feel about moving on to some math?
Let's go ahead and move on. Thanks, Dr.
All right. So in those same grade levels, we also provide a mathematics assessment called iReady Math. This particular assessment was chosen because it's aligned with our instructional materials in grades K through 5, which is called Ready Classroom. We have 3 windows a year that we universally screen our students in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring. And we do have optional monthly progress monitoring assessments as well. If a student is showing a particular need, we can watch them grow in smaller intervals along the way. Our results are both norm and criterion reference, meaning again, we're going to be able to compare our students' performance with populations throughout the United States. And we'll also be able to dive down specifically into the domains of mathematics that may be at struggle or success. Here's how we're looking so far over the course of the academic year. There's some really good news to share. In fact, 2 areas of statistical significance. The first area of significance would be when you take a look at the green bar on the right-hand side. 78% of our students are at grade level according to the fall benchmark and compared to national norms. That's wonderful to see, and it's fairly close to where we were at 2 years ago. But one of the even better things to take a look at is the red bar. Students identified as 2 or more grades below did decrease over the previous year 5% from where we're at, and it's the lowest that we have seen over the last 3 years. Mrs. Grotman, through her curricular department, has also provided personalized lessons available to all students. So any family member of a K through 5 student can access personal licenses and lessons based on where they're at. So our son, for example, when he logs on, he'll see lessons in areas that he needs to work on as he grows over the course of this academic year. And everybody's lesson path is going to be a little bit different. So it's nice, and it provides a dashboard of growth at the end of each lesson that a student completes. So 2 areas of statistical significance for us, the areas between the green bars and the red bars, both good to see. One of the things, however, that we may want to take a look at is you will notice that we had about 1,800 fewer students taking this assessment this year. And that is because we no longer provide iReady in grades 6 through 8 with the new curricular adoption. We moved those students to FastBridge, and we'll be able to provide that data for you this next month. What are we seeing in our iReady data? Well, 3/4 of our students are on track. That is really great to be able to see. And again, a high percentage for those students, and we had fewer students in Tier 3. Those are definitely some celebrations along the way. We did see a weakness in the domain of mathematics called number and operations, and these are mostly algorithmic operations, so practicing fluency in addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And many of those skills, however, are emphasized over the course of the academic year, and the standards intertwine those over the years. So I think we'll really see some good growth in that area. We did, however, see some inconsistent results, and especially when we look at our results in equity and we start taking a look at how our results are distributed amongst gender and race and service providing. We did see that there was a large disparity in the performance of mathematics around students receiving free and reduced lunch. So that's an area that we definitely are going to want to emphasize. Specifically in the red bar, you see that our goal is to be able to close those gaps with solid use of the instructional materials in Tier 1 teaching. We do think that we're going to be able to get to that point. This is an opportunity in the presentation. I'd like to ask for a quick mea culpa as well, because I had actually presented or provided information about FastBridge, but we were not noticed to include FastBridge in this meeting. I'll have that for you, even though the slides are in the packet for anybody to be able to see about how we performed. We aren't noticed to be able to do that until next month. So with your permission, Vice Chair Smith, may I move on to industry certifications, or does anybody have any questions about the iReady data?
No, just one quick comment, Dr. Nelson. I really appreciated here how you can really dial in on those weaknesses.
Absolutely.
That's a really interesting thing to be able to see us move to that spot, even in these reports of just say, oh, that's a very numbers and operations. That's a very specific kind of area to address instead of it seeming so big and broad just in general. So appreciate that.
Good to hear. And those conversations have already started. Our building administrators are data hounds, and they really love to be able to see where students are at. And that's really rubbing off in how we're using those data to make those individual decisions. Really, whenever you have any sort of assessment data, having that formative conversation with the student about their path and using it to be able to say, hey, let's try this. Let's practice this a little bit. Or I know that you're working specifically on this makes a huge amount of difference in student growth. We also want to take a few moments to get out of elementary school and talk about what happens to our students upon graduation. Over the course of a year, a student has an opportunity, every student in our high schools has the opportunity to earn an industry certification. These are skills that are instantly transferable to the workplace. And we have some data that we'd love to be able to share with you about the class of 2021 and where we can improve over the course of the coming year. Really, the state of Idaho provides certification areas in a variety of areas. In fact, 126 different certificates are recognized by the state of Idaho, some of which are just popping up on the screen now for you. For example, a student can learn how to become an ASE certified mechanic. In fact, we had 14 students this last year who absolutely can fix that problem in your car right now. Students can get a CPR certification and be recognized. Students can get their food safe handlers certificate to be able to work instantly at any restaurant in the Coeur d'Alene area. They can become CIA to A+ certified to be able to fix and address network problems or computer-based problems. Or they can become specialists in the Adobe suite of applications such as Photoshop and Illustrator, or use Microsoft Office applications well enough. We have a variety of different resources along the way, and our students are excelling in this to the point where 60% of our district graduates in the class of 2021 walked across our stage with a professional certificate in one or more areas. 279 of our graduates this last year, 279, certificates were granted this last year. Many of our certificates are being earned in the freshman and sophomore year. In fact, on the screen, you'll see 4 of our most popular certificates that were earned. 146 of our students received Photoshop certification this last year. So if you need that family photo edited, or if you need to be able to build a website, we have several students in our district right now who could help you with that. We talked a little bit about the Office certification. 69 students in our district became either specialists or experts in Microsoft Word. 17 of our students became data-hungry people like me and got their Microsoft Excel certification. And we talked a little bit about the areas of mechanics through ASE as well through KTech and our partnership program out there. Really a lot of great celebration to be able to have, but there are some areas that we can improve in as well. Strength, absolutely. A majority of our students are graduating with an industry certification, but we are seeing fewer certifications since pre-pandemic times. We actually had a high of 729 certifications earned just before the pandemic began in the 19 school year. The other thing that we may want to consider as an opportunity for us is the fact that many of our students are getting certificates in specialized areas. For example, the Adobe Suite we talked about. It's great that we have 200 plus students earning certificates in Adobe Suite applications, but those may not be as applicable. And again, there's 126 recognized certificates available in the state of Idaho. And as a district, 14 of those were used by district students. So there's a lot of other opportunities that are out there. One of the things that we have said in our continuous improvement plan is that we'd like to see 500 students receive certificates or dual degree graduates for the 2022 school year. That's in the plan that you approved this last month. And as I walked through Coeur d'Alene High School just a couple of days ago, I ran into Mr. Zach Russell, who is renovating the shop at Coeur d'Alene High School. Here's just a little bit of his work that he's been doing along the way. I think that we have a lot of opportunity to reinvigorate the career and technical education programs that we have. But as our window currently closes, we will also be sending out some parent notifications and newsletters. And again, our data dashboard is now updated at our district website. You can see iStation and iReady assessments now available. Again, CDA Schools, About Us, Data Dashboard. Vice Chair Smith, I'd love to stand for any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. I have one quick question, and then maybe the other trustees do as well. How does a student, are these certifications done outside of the normal school day, kind of on top of classes or right alongside, or could a student work on a certification in addition to other classes, or how does that work?
Chair Smith, members of the board, it's a great question. Majority of our students will actually earn certifications tied to coursework. So for example, when you are at Lake City High School, if a student is enrolled in any of our career and technical educations there, they have the ability through Certiport to be able to certify in those areas. They take a competency exam over the course of the year. And as that is done, then the certification is earned by them. Any of the 126 certifications are available for any of our students. And for students who would like to learn something new at home, we offer a service called Skillshare, which is freely available on our district website, single sign-on for all of our students. And if they would like to learn how to iron a shirt, up to using digital photography, they can earn that. And then they could work with our teaching staff at any of our schools to take the certification exams that are appropriate to that. But yes, majority of our certifications are around classroom performance, but that does not limit us to being able to offer more.
Thanks. Any other questions?
No.
Thank you very much.
None. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Nelson, so much. I look forward to hearing about FastBridge soon. So thank you. Let's, we're going to go on then to some of our action items for tonight. And our first action item is to accept the resignation and declare a vacancy for Trustee Zone 3. I'm going to invite First of all, Dr. Hucker, I don't know if you have any words to say, and if not, then I'll invite Megan O'Dowd to help.
Yeah, no, Vice Chair Smith, I'm great. Let's go ahead and invite Megan and go from there.
Great. Hi, Megan. Welcome.
Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Hawker. So this process is really governed by Idaho code, and it's 33-504. You are mandated by statute when you receive notice of a resignation to recognize and declare the vacancy when that situation exists. So that's what you're doing this evening. I believe you have a motion in front of you to officially declare that vacancy. There will be some steps that need to happen subsequent to this date in order to fill that vacancy. And I'm happy to discuss those if the board, has questions.
Yeah, I think, Megan, if you want to go ahead and even right now, just kind of explain that process some more for us, that would be really helpful.
Sure. Okay. So there is, after the board declares vacancy, the statute gives you 90 days to fill that position by appointment. And the individual has to be selected by someone that's qualified, so someone that's within the zone, obviously, of where the vacancy exists. So there's no statutory process on how you would go about calling for interested parties. What the district has done in the past is to publish notice of the vacancy and basically call for submittal of interested information. And we could check with Clerkland Town, but I believe normally we post those in the newspaper and put them on the newspaper in the district website, and that's usually 2 to 3 weeks. But that's not a statutory requirement. The board can notice it for as long as they want. The important timing is that it gets filled within 90 days. There is an additional 30-day leeway period if the board is unable to appoint a trustee from the zone within that 90 days. But from my interpretation, the board has to at least make an effort to try to fill that before, because in those additional 30 days, you can choose from the district at large, not necessarily individuals living in that zone. So before you get to that level, you really need to try to fill by interested parties in the zone. And if you're unsuccessful at that time, it would actually go to the county commissioners and the decision gets taken away. I will say, luckily, there is one additional caveat that the statute requires that there be a majority of the members in order to fill those roles. So I recognize that we're going to have 2 vacancies after this evening, but the board does have sufficient quorum to fill spots. But again, it's certainly up to the board as to when between now and the expiration of the 90 days. And I did calculate that before the meeting. And it will expire Sunday, January 2nd. Our monthly board meeting in January is actually the following day. Although normally you would be given a grace period on holidays to the next regular day, my recommendation is that the board still try to appoint both positions before the expiration of the calendar year. And there's no requirement, again, you'll have 2 vacancies. This is at the discretion of the board, whether they could try to fill those concurrently. They could try to fill them separately. There are any combination of ways that the board may choose to do that.
Megan, can I just clarify one question? So you said the 90 days is going to be the 2nd of January, is that correct?
Correct.
And if we don't fulfill our duty, then what the statute say about that?
Well, honestly, it's probably a no harm, no foul, because by the 91st day, you would fill it with whoever, at least for Trustee Brumley's position, you would have a newly elected person that would be sworn in that day. So no harm, no foul. The problem that I see with it is, as a matter of statutory mandate, it says that you shall you shall appoint within 90 days. So you're really only permitted for the discretionary 30 days if you couldn't fill it within the 90.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification.
Any additional questions or?
I don't have any questions because I've been through it a few times, I guess, as a candidate and as a trustee making appointments. But I have some comments when you're ready for that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and maybe we can hear those now and then we can go into motion then.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Ms. Smith.
Yeah, I hear I'll yell or maybe they can turn it up. I don't know. Yeah, go ahead. Trustee Morrisroe.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about just both positions, even though I know we have them kind of staggered here, at least what my thoughts would be. And I would talk about Ms. Brumley's position first. And I think Ms. Town had it written up this way, but to me, with the election next month, for that seat, I think it only makes sense to not appoint that position and just allow the new trustee to take that position. I spoke briefly with Ms. O'Dowd earlier and just wondered if we're trying to meet the 90-day portion. I'm not sure that that's that critical. And we're only talking they'd be sworn in on the 91st day, but perhaps we offer whoever wins that election to come on sometime in December or whatever to start early if they so choose. If they said, no, I'll wait till January, we tried. And so that would be my, I guess, suggestion with that one. I think with the other seat, Ms. Pickford's seat, I think we proceed as we have in the past, that we open that up to an application window. Personally, I would like to see that application window maybe through mid-November or thereabouts, just to allow the election to get past the election. And then after that window closes, perhaps we use our November board meeting to meet and discuss, or use our November workshop to meet and discuss kind of timelines on interviews and the appointing process. In the past, when I've participated kind of in both roles as a candidate and as a trustee, I think at some point we have the application windows, then we bring them in. It's an open public meeting. We've interviewed in public, and then I believe it's a deliberation in public, and then a vote in public. And so, I would say we shoot for that in December sometime.
Go ahead, Trustee May.
Yeah, I would echo Trustee Morris's comments. My question to Ms. O'Dowd earlier was, I think it only makes sense to let Ms. Brumley's position go to the community, and we'll have those results sooner rather than later. And I like Trustee Morris's idea that we could offer whoever was elected, if they wanted to be seated earlier, to meet that statutory obligation. But it sounds as though it's not going to be a huge issue either way, but I think that seems like the best way to proceed. And as far as timeline for Ms. Pickford's zone, I'm open to whatever timeline Ms. Town thinks will allow the community time to apply and get their materials submitted to the board. So what Trustee Morris suggested, I think sounds very reasonable.
I'm in agreement with all of that. I know we've had some interest already, letters to us of interested parties. So the sooner we get that information out to the public so that people can begin that process, the better, so that we can have those seats filled and go forth from there. Ms. Town, I'd invite you. Do you have any comments at this point, and wisdom, having led us through this point many times before?
I should go back and count how many times I've participated in an appointment process. I would say it's probably more than 10. but thank you. I'll work with Mr. Maben and we will put together a process and a timeline using some previous, points that we've used in the past. We'll build off of that and we'll create a timeline based on your comments here tonight, and we'll get that ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan, for sharing us all that information and walking us through. Then I guess the next step is to take these motions under consideration. So do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. And before I do, I just want to say I'd like to thank Trustee Pickford and Brumley for their time. I appreciated serving with them, and certainly sad to see him go. And last week when someone on an impulse asked me what my reaction was, my very quick, off the top of my brain reaction was that I was sad and a little jealous. And I think I stand with that. I wish them the best. I thank them for their effort, and I'll make the first motion here. So I will move to accept the resignation of Trustee Tambra Pickford and declare a vacancy in Zone 3 pursuant to Idaho Code 33504.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the next motion?
Excuse me. I move to accept the resignation of Trustee Jennifer Brumley and to declare a vacancy in Zone 4 pursuant to Idaho Code 33504.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too just want to give Chair Brumley and Trustee Pickford just thanks and appreciation. There's a lot of, if we went back through the years of Trustee Pickford's work and service and Chair Brumley's work and service as well, there's a lot of things that our district can be grateful and thankful for their hard work and their dedication. So really thanks to them and their families.
I'd also like to echo both of those comments. Thank you for the time that they've served and the dedication and commitment to our district. So thank you to both of them.
Great. Hey, the next thing then on our agenda is the trustee zone equalization, and this should be really interesting. And so, Lynn, would you like to introduce Mr. Prickett, or?
Hopefully he's on with us this evening, and I will gladly introduce Jay Prickett, who works in our technology department. And I handed this project off to him. He is a wizard when it comes to maps and mapping and GIS, and he was able to get 2 options for rezoning the trustee zones, and this is a requirement that we must meet, and keep those zones within a certain percentage of population. So we needed to be under 10% in each of the 5 zones. One of the options, he got us down to about 1%, and the second option, we're well under 5%. So I'll turn it over to Jay, if Jay's with us, and let him walk you through the 2 options that we have presenting tonight.
I am here. Thank you for having me. I do want to apologize. I am not feeling well, so I might go through this fairly quickly, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys do have. So let me jump over to share. Are you guys looking at my screen? So I was given 2 pieces of information from the state. The numbers in an Excel spreadsheet, as you can see, are current numbers. The growth in the Northwest has been a challenge we have been dealing with for attendance zones as well. And you can see Zone 3, the voter population far outstripes the other 4 zones. The second piece of information I was given was a map of census blocks in our attendance zones. And you can see there is hundreds upon hundreds. And really the only way to do any sort of balancing is to just hand move and hand add those census blocks one by one. I did my best to follow major roads, neighborhoods. It was short notice. I'm sure if I took a month, we could get some nice rectangles. But I just want to briefly show you our current trustee zones. So zone 3 is the northwest. It has the high population. Really, the only way to balance it was everything had to draw from zone 3 itself. So the first option, I live and work in a world of data and numbers. So my first goal was to get the most equity and balance I could in terms of numbers itself. So option 1, you can see all 4 zones pulled from zone 3. And there is a few little weird jogs, as we call them. But for the most part, we follow main thoroughfares, Prairie, Ramsey, Dalton Avenue. And option 1 came in right here. And we can see those percentages. Now, by law, it has to be less than 10%. But I did want one option, the best I could do, just for posterity's sake. So option 2, the only thing I did differently is I wanted to take out option 1's kind of weird little jog above Dalton Avenue. So that's the only difference between option 1 and 2. We just follow Dalton to make that straight line. And the numbers are a little bit worse, but still well within the 10% by law. Yeah, it was just a lot of hand numbers, hand entering, but if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them for you.
Any questions?
I just had a question too. I think my only concern was splitting up neighborhoods because it's confusing for the voter. So in option 2, I liked how, like you mentioned, it's straightened up. Maybe you could put that slide back up. Yeah. So if we were to look at, for zone 1 in particular, Ramsey, that we're splitting that neighborhood. What about if we just straighten that up a tiny bit and it wouldn't be quite as confusing that, across the street you'd be voting for one zone? Jay, do you see what I'm talking about? It's hard when we're not in the same room, but so between zone 1 and
yes, I know exactly what you mean, and it was definitely a deadline type of situation. If I took a month, and we could definitely have nicer drawn lines. But with the time we had, this is what we came up with. But I do see what you mean. Yes, we're just kind of at the mercy of these census blocks, as you can see. If I jump back over here, even the census blocks are smaller than our current what we consider neighborhoods itself. This big rectangle might be a neighborhood to us, but you can see at least 13 to 14 small blocks within it. You have to calculate. So it comes down to numbers and where the voters live, unfortunately.
Jay, I appreciate the work. I think that option 2 makes the most sense of these just because it's follows those major roads a little more. And I understand what Miss May is talking about. There's that little jog there that's a little different. What I understand, I guess the reasoning behind that, especially with, I think that's zone 3 there, as we know, that's Coeur d'Alene Place and Landings and some of that area. It's just seen a lot of growth, and it makes sense that zone 3 needs to shrink. I think we probably all anticipated that. So I'm okay with option 2.
I'd prefer, just for the sake of voters, option 2 is just clearer. And again, Jay, thanks for all your work on a short timeline to make this happen.
Yeah, I think option 2 definitely makes the most sense. And if we could even clean it up more, that would be even a little bit better. But I appreciate the work you've done, and I hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, then.
I'll make a motion. So I'll make a motion to approve version 2 of the revised trustee zone maps, which meet the statutory compliance under Idaho Code 33313.
I'll second that.
Ms. Smith, just real quick before there's a a vote on that. I did want to ask a question that I failed to of Ms. Town, and I know the answer, but I think it's important to put out there. Ms. Town, in either of these zone maps options, the changes in the zone maps, do they impact any of the current candidates for the November 2nd election?
They do not. I looked at the addresses of the candidates at the time that Mr. Prickett and I were working on this project, and we determined that no one would be affected.
Okay, thank you. I think that would have been an important consideration for us as well if there would have been an impact there, and I just wanted to highlight that there wasn't. So, sorry, Ms. Smith.
Ms. Town, can I make a quick clarification too? So these changes will go into effect for the next school board election in 2 years, just about, I guess, 20.
These changes, I understand, will most likely take effect just after the first of the year. So sometime in January is what I'm understanding, that the state board will approve these changes.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Version 2. Thanks, Jay. All right. Moving on then. We have our participation in the Jewel class action lawsuit. Is this Dr. Hucker? Are you going to introduce this, or should we ask questions?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to. And Mr. Seth Denniston is certainly invited as well to chime in. Just for the essence of time, you'll see there all the documentation in regards to the Jewel class action lawsuit. Other than some administrative time in preparing some materials that the lawsuit would need from us, Mr. Denniston has reviewed that and felt like the time was manageable. Definitely something added to our plate, but definitely something manageable. And then, of course, we could be part of this lawsuit, and if this lawsuit were victorious, it could provide some funds to allow the school district to maybe purchase additional vaping detectors for our schools or things like that. So it's our recommendation that you approve us partnering in this class action lawsuit.
Dr. Hucker, I had a quick question about this. Do we have to provide any student information for this lawsuit, or could you just speak to that a tiny bit?
Yes, and let me defer to Seth, to Mr. Denniston. If you're available, Seth, can you answer that quick question for her?
You bet. Yes, there would be no personally identifiable information. It's all in aggregate. We've heard from our high schools and even our middle schools over time that vaping is a big issue. That's part of why we have our campus safety officers at the high schools. Our administrators deal with vaping a lot, and part of this lawsuit would bring hopefully some resources to help us address what we see as a very significant issue, especially at our secondary schools.
Perfect. I just wanted to clarify that for the community, that no student data would be released in regards to this lawsuit. So thank you.
Yep.
Chair Smith, we may have Attorney Amy White on the call. I'm not sure if she's joined us, but she did offer to be here this evening if there were additional questions.
Thanks. Amy, are you on the...
I don't see her on the participant list. She did get in.
Good. Are we back up and live then?
Need a motion on the lawsuit.
So
I did read the motion. Would you like me to? We're just waiting for a second from Trustee Morrisroe.
You read the motion that was in the packet?
Yes.
That whole long motion?
I'm happy to reread it for you if you'd like.
Reread it because it wasn't done in open session.
Yeah.
Okay.
So reread it?
Yes, please.
Okay. Whereas the district recognized that vaping is a national and local problem impacting upon student health and the disciplinary operation of the district. And whereas multi-district litigation is pending against Juul, as well as its shareholders in federal court. And whereas the board, having considered the inclusion of the district in the multi-district litigation and having found it to be in the best interest of the district and its students, I hereby move that the board take all necessary steps to join this lawsuit as a plaintiff against Juul and direct the board's chairman and/or superintendent to execute all appropriate documents to that end.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Let's move on then. We have our policies for action. Is any discussion on or questions about any of the policies? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the policies as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Policies are approved as presented. Moving on then, we've got the superintendent's report of information items, and Dr. Hawker, why don't you lead our first information item then, which is our COVID data update. What's going on?
Yes, thanks, Vice Chair Smith. Just a brief update on our COVID dashboard. You'll notice that we currently have 31 31 staff out of the building, and currently 286 students out of school based on a COVID-related case. Those 31 staff absences, I think it's just important to share out that, of course, those are ones that we have identified as specific COVID-related being out of the classroom right now. In general, the past several days, we have needed closer to 50 to 60 substitutes each day, and we are generally able to fill 35 to maybe 45 of those substitutes. So we're continually short a little bit on substitutes, but so far holding ground. You can see that the district office has a large number of district office staff that are out. The buildings right now, call it fortunate, I guess, that they've been spread sporadically across enough of the buildings that we're maintaining ground at this time. So just wanted to share that brief update with the board, and if there's any specific questions, I can do my best to answer. If not, I can get you the answers following the meeting.
Great, thank you, Dr. Hawker. Is there any specific questions for Dr. Hawker at this time?
Dr. Hawker, have you guys heard from Panhandle when we can expect to see cases start going down, headed the other direction? Have we gotten to the peak yet? I know that there was an article in the paper that talked about a backlog of a significant number of cases in our community. Has there been any correspondence or conversation with them when we might expect to see things kind of start calming down?
Trustee May and Vice Chair Smith, I believe the information that I'm hearing and receiving is relatively current with what we've heard for the past several weeks. There is a backlog, and so as far as tracking whether an additional spike or increased numbers, because of that backlog, it's unlikely that we're going to see those real numbers right now. But overall, the anticipation from the state as a state is that we should hopefully hit our peak here in the next few weeks. And then I think it's just important to be mindful that as we continue to grow our numbers to hit that peak in the next few weeks, it will take equally as long on the other side of that peak to get back down to where we are at either today or a week ago. So I really am right now remaining still hopeful that perhaps if we can really focus on keeping our schools open through the month of October, maybe we will see that we are, the data will show us that we're on the backside of this. But again, time will tell. And if anything I've learned through the last 18 months of COVID is that It seems like as soon as we think we know something, we find out we don't. And so it's just important to remain flexible and do the best we can. And we're currently doing that and keeping our schools open as best as we can.
Great. Thanks for that update.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
None for me.
None for you. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hucker. Thank you for all the hard work to keep our schools open at this time. Let's move on then to our school counseling committee update. Is that going to be Mr. Orchard or?
Yes, I believe Mr. Orchard, if you're on, would you like to provide that update?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry for the delay. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. As if you remember, the board had a conversation in March of last year talking about counselors, their role and position, and perhaps the delicate balance between keeping confidentiality with students and getting full disclosure and parent permission for counseling services. Once Annie West was in charge of that about that time, and when she left at the end of August, she transferred that responsibility to me. So we convened our very first meeting. We had Casey Morrisroe there, along with 6 different counselors, 2 from each level, elementary, middle, and high school, as well as 2 parents from the district and 1 administrator. And we discussed, we met for 2 hours, we discussed the problem. We tried to define the problem, and in the end, we decided we were going to make some addendums to our procedure, the counseling procedure. 2 high school counselors took responsibility for that, and they've already made their updates just in a few days and sent it to the group. We have every intention to meet next week to hopefully kind of finalize that policy, talk through any other issues, and then submit the new policy to the board.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions? Or Trustee Morris, or you attended that meeting as well?
I did. It was a great conversation that we had. Keith did a great job of getting us back on track, because that's a conversation that could go on and on and on. But I think we the group did a good job of discussing the issue and how we can improve the policy or procedure. Ultimately, the group decided, let's look at the procedure first. The policy, as kind of a broad guiding statement, is pretty solid. At least that would be my recommendation, or that was our thoughts as we talked. But there could be some more detail through the procedure. And so that's what we're going to meet and discuss next week, and hopefully bring back to the board.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for all your work on that. That's, I know this is a deep interest to our community as well, and so we'll look forward to that coming back before us soon. Thank you. Terrific. Let's go on then. We've got the high school schedules committee update with Ms. Barrett. I think you're gonna.
Yes, I'm here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Seth's going to help me out here. We regrouped after a summer hiatus. There was communication going on during the summer, but not official committee meetings, and really centered our work again around the why. The heart of what we're doing is just functions around the idea that all students, regardless of where they live in Coeur d'Alene schools, have access to the same opportunities and function with the same graduation requirements. So with that being said, I'll just kind of give you an update with just a quick presentation, and we'll go quickly because I know time is. So if everybody can see that. it's a little fuzzy to me, but the high school alignment committee was excited to regroup, as I mentioned, and we've been planning 2 informational meetings, just really to solicit community feedback. This is not going to be a big, broad survey. This is going to be focused feedback. So the attendees will have information about the 3 proposed schedules, which I'll get into in a minute. The curriculum audit, which is really our why. It's stated in 2002 and 2018 that we really need to be aligning the 2 big high school schedules. So we'll also be learning about the instructional framework, because that also has been in our conversations as we bring a schedule forward for recommendation. So we just look forward to that. So this is a 7-period modified block, which was proposed last June. Dr. Mike Nelson reformatted it because to me it looked like it was an early release. No, kids are going all day. So you have your schedule bookended where the teachers are seeing their students, all their students on Monday and Friday. And then in the middle of the week, there are blocks. So you have your short, direct instruction, possibly mini lesson on Mondays to set the tone for the week, a larger saturated time for learning, for deeper learning. And at the end of the week, you can set the tone, wrap up, get closure, and set the tone for the weekend. So that was the first option. And then this is, this looks like kind of a hot mess, but we're playing around with times that would work for K-Tech. And right now, Wednesday is not compatible as well as we would like, and students would be missing some class time. So that just is, I know that we didn't want to work with prep time and lunch time and such collaboration. That just gives you an example of our hard work, but we're still fine-tuning the details. And then the next one is an A-B block. So your days, we wanted a little more consistency. The committee felt that maybe the changeover and the A-B rollover didn't offer the consistency and contact. And so this was brought forward, voted by the committee. So you still have your A-B block, but your days are set. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are predictable. And then the teacher can see all students at the end of the week. We felt that was important. So, and then the third option is very predictable, the 6-hour traditional. So those are the 3 that we're working with. And I believe those options are in your board packet. And then just this is to give you a little more about the feedback process. We really want our recommendations we want to share the findings and the recommendations of the curriculum audit, because that's really the why. That's why we're in this business. And we get a lot of, why would you change your schedules? What's going on? So we plan to educate the public about that. It creates inequities and just, it's not okay that just based on where you live, you have different high school experiences. So, so we will bring these 3 schedules forward, the 7-hour modified, the 6-hour traditional, and the A-B block with an anchor day to the public, citing the curriculum audit findings and recommendation. And then SAG is a student advisory group is going to be conducting some student focus groups. Unfortunately, that was not happening, and our high school advisor resigned. We do have a new one as of last week, so that piece is missing right now. So we look forward to getting the student feedback and then of course focused feedback from our surveys conducted on the 6th and the 13th. So the next slide is, I believe, our timeline, an updated timeline. I think we've met 3 times. We have some open forums on the 6th and 13th. The 6th of it is planned for Woodland. The 13th is at Lakes. At that point, we'll take that, the feedback, and there will definitely be some revisions and shifts. And then we plan to just look at all the data and considerations as a committee and bring forward something, be ready in November with a potential proposal in November, and then I believe that we will bring that to you in December. Given the high school SAG advisor just coming on board and just maybe feeling a little bit fast tracked, so we are open to modifications to this timeline. And then just the last slide is we welcome your guidance and input as we further develop this important mission. So that's my quick, in the spirit of time.
Terrific. This is a long process, and
it's been difficult, I have to be honest, and we were making great progress. But I think it's time that maybe we take a step back. We've lost two of our fellow board members, and I'm not sure that the board is in the position to make this sort of decision until we've seated an entire board, and not to take back from the work the committee's doing. But Ms. Pickford was also a board liaison on this committee and was a valuable contributor. And without her there, I think moving forward, it will be difficult. So I would like to hear some trustees' comments on hitting pause for 30 days, getting this board reseated and whole, getting new board members up to speed. There is potential come January that we could have 4 entirely new board members, and this is an enormous decision for our community. And I respect each and every student and parent, and I want them to think that we're being fully transparent in this process. So I applaud every person that's participated. They have done a great job. I think they've come up with 3 great options, and I think Libby is right on that there is agreement. We need to have equity between these 2 high schools as far as course offerings. How we go about doing that yet, I think we need community input, and we need a board fully seated to have really great in-person board dialogue, and I don't know that we can have that before January. So I would just like to get input from my 2 other fellow trustees. And Libby, if you have more input on that too. The committee, I wasn't at the last meeting, but I know they probably have some feedback about that. So I'm not saying I want to push it back an entire year, because I think we've been trying to hold off on doing that. But if there's a way that we could hit pause for 30 days, you guys can continue getting input moving forward, see if we can get the K-Tech schedule better aligned, and reaffirm our commitment to getting these 2 high schools with similar graduation requirements, and how we go about doing that. I don't think we have yet determined. So
I think it hit me on Saturday. It took about Saturday, a couple days after we kind of heard that our trustees were resigning, when I was hit with Trustee Brumley, Trustee Pickford are both on that side of town and really represent Lake City. And so I want to make sure that our decision is really representative of our full community. And so I would welcome Libby, just your input on the timing again, because I don't want to lose some of our momentum, because we've been working on this for so long. Kind of back to the deadline kind of pieces of when these pieces need to kind of fall in place in order to move forward. I've heard different things regarding that. So
we want to work closely with the board, and I think we would all appreciate working with a full board. I think that we could go ahead with our surveys, focus feedback, and just understand that that's a moment in time piece of data for us, and that, as we move along, certainly host another evening. We just would look forward to informing a full board, and just in the spirit of being fair and balanced.
I do appreciate.
So we could easily regroup in January with the full board, and maybe have a workshop that would inform the board. There's a lot of knowledge that some people carry, and it wouldn't be fair in terms of, elective offerings and budgetary concerns, and there's a lot that goes into it. So I would love to present to the board just kind of a look back at where we've been, and then jumpstart again in January.
I do agree that Ms. Pickford's zone, represents Lake City, and so it's important that area have a voice in this conversation. And so, once the board gets a timeline solidified for her new appointment or appointment for that zone, I think we could get them, attending meetings and get them up to speed, because I do agree there's a lot of background information that's going to be imperative for whoever steps into this position to make a really good decision. So I do think that that region of our community deserves representation in this conversation.
I agree, and I think that it's really got to happen around January. We are looking at master schedule building potentially, and professional development for teachers if there's a change. So it would really have to happen around that January, February mark, or be delayed another year, and then we would spend 2022-23 planning and preparing and offering professional development for whatever changes on the way for whatever school, and then implement in 23-24. There's no way we can change the schedule in February, March, April of this year and expect it to be implemented the following year, in my opinion.
Trustee Morris Rowe, any?
Yeah, I think I'm fine with what Trustee May and you, Ms. Smith, had to say there. I would like to see, and I'm not quite clear, but I'd like to see the workshops that are set up for the 6th and the 13th continue, because I think we've had so much going on in the last year and a half, and this stuff, which is this may be some of the most important work we've done in my 6 years in the district, really tends to drift down. Most of the talk is about COVID, right? And so I think it's important that we continue with those workshops next week, at least to discuss the why and the how come, and what are these options, and what does that mean for your child or your, whether they're current high schoolers or future high schoolers, and get some feedback in that regard. And there may be great feedback that comes out of that tweaks us in a little different direction as we move towards January. So I'd like to see those events still take place, and that the work continue, but maybe just on a slightly different time frame.
I think that's very. Go ahead.
No, there's, after participating with this committee for several months now, I think there's one thing for me that is more apparent than it was when I initially started this work, and that is, if the community chose a 6-period schedule, I think it is apparent that there are not enough elective opportunities for that sort of schedule with the current additional graduation requirements that we have. And so, the committee had some opportunity to discuss that during our last meeting, and so I think the board has some work to do. Again, it was, included in our consent agenda, our graduation requirements. But if, no matter what direction we go in, we're going to have to meet in the middle as far as providing elective opportunities. There is a huge disparity between these two high schools. And so finding a way to meet more in the middle is going to have to be part of this conversation. And so now that Ms. Nichols is no longer with us, I know she had been working on opt-ins or meeting these requirements. Dr. Nelson has talked about speech can be embedded, in coursework and other ways. Just opportunities that we free up elective opportunities for our students, no matter what direction we go. And I think that's one way that seems as though we can meet closer in the middle. And so I guess I'm asking my board members to maybe, be open again to this conversation. And, Libby, you can maybe lead this conversation, because we didn't really dive into that. And I didn't understand with the 6-period block before doing this, or 6-period schedule, with our additional requirements, it really only allows the opportunity if a student's going to be doing dual enrollment or going on to a college prep route. There's really only 1 or 2 elective opportunities. And that's difficult, and I'm not sure that's what we want for our students either. So I think that needs to be integral to the conversation. So I don't know if that could be provided by you in a memo to the board, but just starting to get us up to speed, because I was not aware of that. And I think Lake City is more aware of that, and I learned a lot from sitting with them and discussing it. So I think that would be beneficial for all of us to bring that into the conversation as we move forward. And I also agree with Trustee Morris Rowe. I do not want to hit pause on these community forums. They are important. I think there's going to be a lot of input that we get, and it might actually open our eyes up to something that maybe we're missing. So I would like to go ahead and continue moving forward. I would just like to hit pause on when the board actually sits for a formal discussion on the committee's recommendation. And so that is my recommendation tonight.
Well, then let's stay the course. I can share with families and community members, if you come to Woodland on October 6th or Lakes on October 13th, you will find the 3 schedules, big visuals. You will also learn about the instructional framework, and you will have kind of the highlights, because it's a big read, highlights of the curriculum audit. And I think once we get closer to our decision, we can phase 2 is definitely graduation requirements. However, please expect a board memo outlining some thinking around that and possibilities.
We look forward to the possibilities of that. Thank you so much. All right, let's go on to our equity framework community group update then with Ms. Keinert.
Good evening, Trustee Smith, Vice Chair Smith, sorry, members of the board, Dr. Hawker. Good to visit with you guys tonight. I have an update on where progress that we've made on convening an equity framework community group. I just want to start with actually just reading part of the equity framework. It's right at the end, the concluding paragraphs, that we recognize the invaluable support, dedication, and passion this wonderful community extends toward Coeur d'Alene Public School students, and we could not do this important work alone. We commit to regular conversations with diverse representative groups of stakeholders in the district's pursuit of continuous improvement on behalf of our students. This framework exists to communicate our firm belief that each and every student, regardless of circumstance, can thrive within Coeur d'Alene Public Schools and trust that our collective efforts will prepare them for success in life. And that was included in our invitation to stakeholders in our community to express interest in participating in the group if they wanted to. And so for the month of September, we had a survey open, and 151 people actually expressed interest in serving on this committee, which is, I am just so excited that there's been so much interest. A couple students among that group, 11% roughly indicated that they are currently employed by the district. So we had some administrators, some teachers, some paraprofessionals, just really neat group of people applying for this. And 85% of the applicants stated that they have at least one student, one child who is a student in our district. So that's a little bit of our respondees. Next steps, we've given ourselves until October 22nd, which is a Friday. You just heard Jay, our tech department is amazing and they are busy. He's shown up sick to talk to us about board trustee zones, and he's also my guy for recategorizing the applicants by their addresses. Part of our criteria was that stakeholders would be drawn from each of the 5 school board zones, and so I'm going to give him some time to go through that, because so many people fit multiple criteria that you live within our district, that you'll be drawn from your direct connection to elementary, middle, and high schools in our district, such as a parent or custodian of a student, a volunteer or staff member. And the third criteria, that stakeholders be drawn from invested community leaders and partners, including professional or volunteer. And so one of the questions on the survey gave applicants a chance to talk about their connections in the larger community. And it's a really fascinating group of people, most of whom I haven't met yet. So we will take a few weeks to go sort through that criteria, and then I'll be sending out some emails and be making a bunch of phone calls to see, who's available, what times work. We said our initial group, we'd like to have between 12 and 18 people. I think through the sorting process, and then giving some phone calls but for example, I noticed a couple people on there don't live here anymore. Just a couple things I think will whittle us down. I'm sure the pool will still be pretty big, and we'll look at dates that work for people. But I read the invitation, that section from our equity framework, because this was never meant to be a one-time thing. COVID shut down a lot of the conversations that we want and need to have with our community. And the beginning of the framework talks about how the document might be used by the school board, by administrators, by teachers, by students, and by families. And in order for it to be useful, it needs to be accessible. And so I'm really excited to start the conversations with this group and get into our buildings and have conversations with equity learning communities within our buildings, student groups. Like I said, 2 students applied to be on this, which I just thought, like, I got to know these kids. That's awesome. So I'll make that clear in any messages that I send out. If you put your name in this hat, you haven't gotten rid of me if you can't make this initial meeting. And if you didn't apply, there'll be more opportunities to do that. So excited about this work and excited to meet with stakeholders and make this document really accessible and understood and valuable to the people it matters to.
Thanks. Any questions?
Okay, I just had a quick question about the process in general. I appreciate your update tonight and your work on this this group. But can you say, generally speaking, for community members who have applied, what is the goal of the committee and what can the board expect to see after you guys have finished meeting? Will it be in the form of a recommendation or changes potentially to the framework, or is it an informative working group? Kind of just more guidance on the community so they know what to expect as far as what their roles will be and what the board, when you guys finish your work, can expect as far as a recommendation or an update, what that might look like.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Trustee May. We've talked a lot about how these frameworks are all living documents, and we really want to make sure that they don't stagnate, that they continue to be responsive. Initially, our criteria for writing our frameworks was to address issues that were surfaced in the curriculum audit that was several years ago, and I know we've made some progress in those. And so my goal in sharing this document with our community is to make sure that it is accessible. I can think of a few instances where even as we shared it with teachers, there were questions about, now what does that mean? I don't want it to be, no one wants this document to be loaded with teacher jargon, with edu-speak. We want to make sure that if you look at it, that it really captures the spirit of what this community hopes for, and it's in each and every student, and that we are addressing those in meaningful ways. And so I expect there will be feedback, just as there was initially when I was meeting with stakeholders within the district during COVID. We had a few Zoom meetings, and I think that those conversations really strengthened the document and got it closer to being what it needs to be. And I fully expect that to happen again with this group. And so I'm not sure if that comes in the form of recommendations. I know that the board adopted this document, and so you would definitely be presented with any changes, and then whatever the protocol is for if that's a formal recommendation or an update, as we continue to strengthen it, I'll follow whatever the desire of the board is.
I appreciate that. I think there has been some confusion in our community, and in hindsight, going back and reading it multiple times, I can see how it can be confusing, and there could be perceptions of things that we don't want for our district. And so I'm hopeful that we have a forward-facing document, as you suggested, that our community, our parents, our students fully understand what our intent is, and that transparency will be first and foremost, because equity is an important term. It's not meant to be marginalization of any one student at all. So for me personally, I would like to see a better understanding of how this really is applicable to our students in their everyday learning process, and meeting them where they are. So if it requires modification, I support that. And I know the board would also be in support of a document, however it adapts. It is a living document. So I just appreciate and I'm grateful for the community members that have applied, and I'm excited to see the work that you guys will do moving forward. So thank you so much.
Terrific. Trustee Morrisroe, any thoughts?
Do you know when, I guess I just have a brief question. Do you know when you plan to meet first? Or at least a month, are you targeting November or?
Yeah, well, roughly. We said by Friday, October 22nd, that we would have the selection process complete. And so toward those last days, and maybe a little bit, I need to assemble this group. And so getting a sense of what times work for everybody is going to be really important. It wouldn't be fair if I just set the time by my schedule. That doesn't make any sense when you're looking at a equity framework. And so there might be a little wiggle room somewhere in there, but yeah, by the end of October, we want to have a schedule set up.
Thank you.
And we stated that we would have up to 5 one-hour meetings. We can kind of fill that out to gauge, interest and progress. And it's focused just on the equity framework. There's not a lot of other things being brought in there because it's our document, it's our community document. So however long we need up to those 5 sessions is fine by me.
Thank you for bringing this forward again for all of us, and we look forward to seeing how this new committee kind of comes out.
Thank you. Me too.
We've got policies for information here. There's 4 different policies. Dr. Hawker, is there anything you need to present on any of those? These will go back out to the community for feedback and input.
Yes, Vice Chair Smith, that's exactly right. The policies are there. They'll go back out for the community for a month, yourself included as well. And we'll see what input we get, and the recommendations and things are there already redlined. So
perfect. Great. Any questions from trustees at this point, or should we move on? All right. Information items. We've got a calendar. We've got October 18th, a workshop, which is on our calendars. I think we'd encourage everyone to keep that open, and it'll be based on needs. And so once that's determined what that topic might be, that'll go out to the public to know just exactly what that workshop might be. And then our next board meeting will be November 1st. And again, working to be in person for that with public comment. So working on that, and we will put that out as soon as we know what that might look like. So with that, do I have a motion to go into executive session for Idaho Code 74-206 subsection J to consider labor contract matters?
So moved.
Second.
We will have a roll call on that, and then we will go into exec.
Thank you.
And then we will, so we're going to go to that other Zoom link, and then we'll come back into open session for action following that executive session. So, Ms. Town, do we have a roll call?
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. May?
Yes.
Mr. Morrisroe?
Yes.
Thank you. So we can jump on that other link to go into executive session, then we'll come back to this one and finish the meeting. Thank you.
Terrific. Then do we have a motion?
I accidentally shut down my computer before looking at the motion. Could you read it for me and I could so move?
Yeah.
I have a motion if you want me to read it. Go ahead. Let's see it. Put my glasses on. All right. It's under recommendation, correct?
Yep.
Okay. I move, or it is the recommendation of the board negotiations team to fully ratify the agreements proposed proposed and settled on the CEA and board IBB negotiating teams.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you.
This town is that what we need?
You ready?
Can they hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, that essentially covers what the motion's needed that the board is approving to ratify that agreement. Thank you.
All right. And with that, then I think we can adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.